Hi, I'm Debbie and this is Book and Bujo. Welcome to all who are new and welcome back to those who've been here before. Today we're going over my top 10 and my bottom 3 books of 2023. So I would like to introduce you to someone that I just met who is an amazing creature, and that is George the Moose. My mother-in-law made him for me for my birthday, and a couple years ago, you may have noticed him over here, I've got a little gnome that she made as well, and they are just adorable, and I love their spindly little legs that work really well on bookshelves. He was just too adorable not to mention. Alright, that's not why you came. You came to find out the best books that I read in 2023, which actually I had, it's kind of funny, I think I actually had 23 5-star reads in 2023, which is kind of cool. I may have to do a video with all 23 of them, but today is just the top 10. But I am one of those people that if you say, do you want the bad news or the good news first? I always want the bad news first. Let's just end on a positive note. Let's just get the bad stuff out of the way at the beginning. So here we go, my bottom 3. And the third slot, with a very even 3-star, and that is The Open Secrets of Ireland by T.M. Kettle. Now, overall, there was nothing wrong with this book, just not quite for me. It was interesting, it was very long-winded and very dry. Basically a political paper. He was getting his point across about his position and kind of giving the cons of the other side's position, which is totally fine. Not quite what I was expecting when I first went into the book, but overall it was just kind of okay. In the second slot was Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. Now, this is a book that is probably a lot of people's favorite books. It's very well written. It was narrated by Jeremy Irons. I mean, come on, that voice alone is almost worth a star. But the subject matter of the book. So it's from the point of view of, we'll say, the narrator. So it's almost like a memoir of someone telling his life story, except that he is a pedophile. I did not know this going into it. That's totally on me. I love to go into my books blind and not knowing anything about them, but this is one of those times where that just bit me in the butt. Yeah. So again, it got 2.5 stars, mainly because the pacing was very good throughout. The writing style was really good. It was easy to read in the stance of the prose and all of that kind of a thing. But just, I'm glad it didn't go into like any details or anything like that. You're just following this guy who happens to like 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old girls, and he's, I don't know, 30, 40, very much an adult. And it's just so hard to read that. Yeah. So that got 2.5 stars for me. And of course, being someone who has to finish the books once they start them, I know I should have just DNF'd it, but I did not. There we go. My own fault. My number 1 most disappointing or least enjoyable read that I read in 2023 was Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard. Overall, this book was just meh. It got a 2-star. Not even a 2.5. It was just a 2-star. The writing was okay. The information was kind of interesting. It's basically manifestation, positive thinking. It was basically the gist of the book. It was a fairly short book. Got the point across and then it just kept going. Overall, just meh. A couple of honorable mentions for you, because I did have 23 5-star reads, narrowing those down to just the top 10. So my first honorable mention, so book number 3 for honorable mentions, and that was The Wolf by Leo Carew. And it was just really interesting. It's pretty slow paced throughout the whole thing. Even the battle scenes are on the slower paced side, so you kind of pick up a little bit towards medium pacing when you get to some of the battle scenes, but overall it's slow pacing. There's a lot of dialogue, but it's so interesting, the characters, the world itself, and I just found it fascinating and thoroughly enjoyed it from start to finish. All right, number 2, also a 5-star read, and I have no idea why I like this book, but I love this book, and that is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. And it's basically about this woman who works at a convenience store. She's pretty emotionally distant. She likes routine. She isn't super ambitious. She just likes things to be in her control as much as she can. So she loves the convenience store. She goes in, she comes in at the same time every day. She clocks out at the same time every day, basically does the same things every day, stocks the shelves, faces the shelves, dusts, helps the customers, works the register. And even when customers come at her with something, there's a manual that tells you, okay, in this situation, this is how you react. And so she loves that. And I just found it fascinating. And I think I could actually relate to her quite a bit. I am not the most emotionally affectionate person in the world. I could be a little closed off sometimes. And I definitely like my routine. I have had so many jobs where everything, like every day is nothing but change. Like everything that you worked on the last 2 weeks, oh, we're not doing any of it now. We're going to do this instead. And oh, nope, scrap what you're doing. This is the priority. And I had so many years of that. I crave my routine. As long as I have my, like a morning routine or an evening routine, if everything else in the day is kind of up in the air and subject to change, at least I have that morning or evening routine that I can rely on. So I could relate to the main character in Convenience Store Woman a little bit, but I just found it fascinating. I just thought it was so interesting just to be inside the mind of someone who works at a convenience store and kind of likes that routine like I do, and just her family and neighbors, all of that. They just find her odd and not always necessarily super nice to her. They just don't understand. And yeah, I just found it fascinating. Loved it. So my honorable mention number 1, my favorite out of the honorable mentions, and it probably would have made it into the top 10, but I'm not actually done with it yet. But I'm still going to put it in an honorable mention because it's been so good. I'm about 75% of the way through and I'm getting close to the end. But that is The Advent of Winter by Don McDermitt from Dominish Books here on YouTube, and I will leave his channel linked below. So this is a short story every day through December 24th. So we got the first story on December 1st, and we get 1 story a day up until December 24th. So I'm up to day 19, and they have all been so interesting, and they're all written by different authors, and it's just been so much fun getting this, like looking forward to every morning I can get up and I get to read a short story, a fantasy short story set in the winter time, and it's just been so much fun, and all of them have been really good. I think there was one that I probably was a little more meh about, but 1 out of 19 so far, that's not too bad. And it was still very enjoyable. I enjoyed the book or the short story quite a bit. It just wasn't, to me, it wasn't as good as some of the other ones in there. And one of my favorite authors wrote a short story for this, but we haven't gotten it yet. So every day I'm like, oh, is it his yet? Is it his yet? Hopefully soon. The Advent of Winter by Dawn Embers from Dominish Books. So my number 10 is actually a series, and not all of the books actually got 5 stars. Some of them were 4, some were 4.5, but overall the series itself is a 5-star series, and I would highly recommend it to anyone, especially if you like more grimdark. If you're not into the grimdark, like military fantasy, probably not your cup of tea. But I thought it was so well written, and just the complexity of it and the characters and the world building and the magic system, like everything was just so good, so well written, so interesting. And that is Malazan Book of the Fallen by Steven Erikson. Right, number 9 is actually a middle grade, and there's actually 2 middle grades I gave 5 stars to, and they were both so good. So this one is 24 Hours in Nowhere by Dusty Bowling, and she also wrote Across the Desert, which I also gave 5 stars to. And they are both set in Arizona, which of course is one reason why I love them, because I knew the areas that she was talking about in the books, which was kind of fun. So this one is about a young boy in high school who has a crush on this girl who is a dirt bike racer. And he's just pretty shy and doesn't really talk to her much. But the story starts out with him getting bullied. And basically his cheek is pressed into a cactus, which, if you've ever been around a cactus and been poked by one at all, whether you got a needle stuck in you or not, that is not fun. It does not feel good. And so he has the poor cactus needles stuck in his face. And he's just trying to survive this moment with this bully. And who comes by but this dirt bike racer that he has a crush on. And of course he's just humiliated because he basically got the bully's shoe on one side of his face and a cactus stuck to the other side. And she ends up trading her dirt bike for him to save him from the bully. And he is now determined to get that dirt bike back. And so he makes this deal with the bully to go into one of the abandoned mines that's off limits to get some gold that used to be mined there and bring it back to him, and then he'll give him the dirt bike to give back to the girl. So of course the bully has a sidekick, and the sidekick, it has to go along with this boy to go into this mine to make sure he's not pulling a fast one. So his best friend from middle school and the girl he has a crush on find out about it. And so it ends up with these 4 going into the mine to try and get gold for the bully to get the girl's dirt bike back. And I love the interactions between all the characters and some of the ways they open up to each other and the different adventures they find while they're in this mine. And it was just so much fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, but there are, of course, trigger warnings for bullying and some other things for this book. Number 8 is Stalking Around the Christmas Tree by Jacqueline Frost, and this is the 4th book in the Christmas Tree Farm Mysteries. And these are just so much fun. They're just a guilty pleasure, palate cleansing book that is just enjoyable. The mystery is interesting. It has you guessing throughout the story the whodunit part of it, but there's also a fun romance that's kind of thrown intermingled. It's a small town and it's a reindeer farm where you have a bunch of Christmas trees and reindeer, and they have what they call reindeer games. And so you can come up for the 2 weeks before Christmas and you can stay on this farm. There's an inn, there's a bakery, and it's just so cute and heartwarming and fun. I love it. I've loved all 4 of the books, but this is the only one I've read this year. But overall, that whole series is totally worth it. And number 7 is completely different than the one I just talked about, and that is of Dawn Embers by Kyoko M. So this is the 3rd book in the Of Cinder and Bone series, which I've loved every single book. So good. So we have cloned dragons that are roaming the city, multiple cities, multiple dragons, and just the creativity that Kyoko M has in all of the different species of dragons, the different traits they have, poisonous ones and Arctic, like ice ones that can, like, instead of like shooting fire, they could shoot like either freezing flames or some kind of ice at you. It's so interesting. And then of course you have your typical fire dragons, and I just found it fascinating. And so it's sci-fi and fantasy, plus there's some adventure in there. You have assassins in there trying to kill the scientists who created the process to clone the dragons. And the storyline throughout all 3 books, it just works seamlessly. I think she does such a really good job integrating new characters while keeping the old ones around, and the relationships between all of them. And there's definitely, I forget the term that they used because it's not one I come across in everyday language, so I didn't remember. But the two main characters are the scientists, so you have a male and a female scientist, and then the female scientist also has a best friend, a polyamorous relationship, that's the term. So it ends up being the three of them in a relationship together, and so you have that intermingled with everything else, and it sounds like it would just be like, oh, cringy, whatever, you just did that for convenience or trying to play on something. But it actually, the way she wrote all of them, it makes so much sense. You'll have to read it and let me know what you think for yourself. So check it out, the Of Cinder and Bone series, and that is by Kyoko M. Okay, then we have book number 6, and that is Dragon Mage, which is the first book in the Riven World series by M.L. Spencer. And I thought that was a really good story as well. Good coming of age story where you have the downtrodden boy that is just different from everybody else. And so of course he's picked on by everybody. He's discounted and just ignored by everybody except for his mother, of course, who's very loving for him. He finds out, of course, he has a gift and has to figure out how to use it and help save the world type of situation. But it's really interesting. I liked the subtlety of parts of it. The magic system was really interesting. So it's almost like you could see threads of magic and you could like pluck one or pull one. You could tie them together, and it was just really interesting. And the different types of magic users, as well as all of the different worlds that kind of intersect each other in different ways. It was just very interesting, somewhat complex, but not necessarily complex, if that makes any sense. So like the magic system and some of the dual world type things have some complexity to it, but yet the storyline and the writing style was very simple and easy to read. I just thought it was a really heartwarming story overall. Book number 5 is actually another series because I read the entire series in 2023, and they pretty much all either got 4.5 or 5 stars. One of them, I think the first book got 4.5 stars, the last two both got 5 stars, and that is The Dark Artifices by Cassandra Clare. I just love the Shadowhunter series and all of the books in them. It's probably one of my favorite series in that world, the Shadowhunter world. I did really like the Last Hours series as well, but I think the Dark Artifices came in slightly above that one. I feel like the Dark Artifices series had more steady pacing. So a lot of hers, there's, you know, relationshipy type stuff going on, and then there's like actions and battles, and then relationships type stuff going on, and then actions and battles. And there's a lot of ups and downs, and I feel like the Dark Artifices series had a little bit more even pacing. The relationship, more slow-moving parts were more interwoven with some of the action a little better, and I liked all the characters, and it was just a fun ride, reminiscent of when I first started reading the Mortal Instruments series, and being able to have now read through all of the Shadowhunter universe that has been released, with the exception of any of the graphic novels that have been released. So I'm very excited to finish up the last couple that she has not written yet, but is working on. So I'm excited for those. Yeah, so instead of bogging down my top 10 list with books all from the same series, I just decided to put the series itself on there. Cheating a little bit, but it's my top 10 list, right? I'll cheat a little bit with that. Okay, book number 4 is yet another dragon book, and that is Ascendant, which is the first book in the Songs of Chaos series by Michael R. Miller. Very excited to continue with this series. I did purchase all 3 books in a novella, something like that, in the whole series for the Songs of Chaos, and I really liked this one. It was really good. Okay, so we're following a young apprentice to a cook, which is his father, and he finds a dragon egg and bonds with a dragon unexpectedly. And he also finds out that this dragon is blind, and now finds that he now has to figure out, what does this mean? So I'm bonded to this dragon. I'm trying to hide this dragon because I'm not supposed to be bound to it. and there's a plague happening, there's a war going on, and he's got to figure out how he now fits into all of this while still bonding with his dragon and trying to figure out what that means. And it was very exciting. It's a lot faster paced. There are a lot of times, you know, you're sitting around a campfire talking with each other type of thing, but then there's very fast paced action battles going on, and it was a fun ride. So book number 3 is one of my favorite authors, and that is Emma Wong, and that was Blood Over Bright Haven. And this is a dark academia book with a lot of trigger warnings, so be sure to look those up before you go into this book, because there are a lot. There's assault, there's abuse, there's a lot of death in this book. She does not hold her punches for anything. She just gets in there and gets the job done, and it's dark academia done so right. So I will leave linked up in the cards above, as well as down in the description box below, my review of Blood Over Bright Haven, which was definitely a 5-star read. Very high 5-star. We're talking like 5 3/4. Book number 2 is another series, of course. So I did read all 4 books from the Stormlight Archives this year, and so the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson is book number 2. So all 4 books got 5 stars for me, and I cannot wait. I believe the 5th book comes out next year, 2024, I believe. Very excited for that one to come out. The characters are so well done, and the world building is phenomenal. The magic system is super interesting and intriguing. It's got a complexity and yet a simplicity to it, and just the whole world is just beautiful. This book is chef's kiss. I mean, this series, the whole series. Yes. I know there's some people that are annoyed by some characters, where other people, that's their favorite character, but there's many main characters to go around. There's at least 4 really strong main characters, so there's definitely one that you will love. And that brings us to book number 1. My number 1 book of 2023 is, drumroll, Of Darkness and Light by Ryan Cahill. I'm going to somewhat include in here The Exile, because I also read that one this year, and such a beautiful series. Okay, I got kicked out of my chair. So let's try this again. So my number 1 book was Of Darkness and Light by Ryan Cahill, and I am also including The Exile in that because I read that this year as well, and they were both 5 stars, so good. And I just love this series. So the first book starts out, it's a good book. It's not necessarily a 5-star. I think I gave it a strong 4-star. And the Fall, which is the novella prequel, that also was a 4-star. Both really good. And I feel with each book Ryan Cahill writes, the better they get. Each one is better than the last one, so I cannot wait to read Of War and Ruin, which I really wanted to get to this year, but I was not able to because I was trying to finish off the Stormlight Archives and Malazan Book of the Fallen. So I got those ones done, and the Shadowhunter series. Next year, Of War and Ruin is one of my top priorities, as well as The Ice, which is the novella that comes after that. So Ryan Cahill has come so far from his first book until where he is now. So I highly recommend the entire series. And Of Darkness and Light, I mean, there's dragons, there's orc-like creatures, there's dwarves, there's elves, there's so many interesting species in this book, as well as the characters are amazing. You really get to know each of the characters. I think the character building and the interactions between all of the different characters, their growth and making good or bad decisions, they deal with the consequences of their actions, and I just love all of that. Character building, 5-star. World building, 5-star. Magic system, 5-star. I might be a little biased, because I just love his writing. But I think just everything about this series is a 5-star, so definitely check it out. So thank you so much for joining me, and please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other videos from me. And if you've made it this far, leave a dragon emoji in the comments for all of the dragon books I read that are in my top 10 list. I have at least 4, if not 5, so almost half of the books on my top 10 list had dragons in them, because, oh yeah, Malazan had dragons in it. So if there's a dragon in the book, I think I'm most likely to enjoy it. So what was your favorite book of 2023? Did you have any disappointing books in 2023? I hope not, but if you did, go ahead and share them down below. Maybe somebody else can commiserate with you, or maybe they actually would like it, because, I mean, just because I liked a book doesn't mean you're going to like it, and just because I don't like a book doesn't mean you won't like it. So don't knock the 2 and 3 stars out there sometimes. And until next time, keep reading. Bye!